What's up, guys? Welcome back to Lights Out F1 podcast. I'm Patrick. That's Jakob, and we had Hungary today. So, first off, you're probably excited because Lewis got a pole position for the first time in 2 years.
Oh my god! If only to be disappointed by the race.
I
It was
mean,
a good. It
you
was
should
a.
have expected it.
Uh, yeah. I mean, it was a good. It was a good qualifying session. He pulled it out of the bag honestly because it
Yeah,
didn't. It there was no purple sectors. It was just pretty much all green sectors, all personal best. But on the track at the right moment at the right time.
yeah,
Um, and you want to be the last to cross the line in a Q3 session. So
yeah.
all credit to him. I think it was him dragging that car to places it obviously doesn't deserve to be. So it was a good session. It was a good session.
Yeah. Probably one of the more exciting qualifying sessions. I'd say up there with Monaco.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. But the McLarens. I mean, Claire's not here, so we don't have to worry about the whole woo type of deal. But the McLarens are just so quick right now.
Yeah, they're looking incredibly quick, and I mean everyone says that Hungary and Budapest is a more of a slow speed corner type track, but realistically, it's a medium speed corner
Yeah,
track because I think they don't dip below second gear ever. I think during the entire lap,
hmm
and uh, um, it was bound to perform well there since it's good in high speed corners, and
yeah,
realistically, it is a mildly high speed track. So yeah, it was a good showing. 3 weekends in a row now that they've had a good performance.
hmm
I'd say they're probably competing with Mercedes for the second fastest car. Whether they can make the leap to P2 in the constructors is yet to be seen. But
yeah,
yeah, good showing for Lando and Oscar.
yeah. Um, I guess let's just start off with Red Bull. So Max overtook Lewis at the very start, and then kind of just went off into the distance. I mean, he pulled out. Like they said that their upgrade was worth 2/10. But it looks like it was worth a lot more than that in race trim. I think in race trim it actually was closer to like 3.5 to 4/10. And I think at one point during the race, probably before the pit stop, Max was up to 35 seconds ahead of the next person, which is
Yeah,
kind of insane when you think about it. And he also was able to push the tires for more laps than anybody else. I think he pushed a set of mediums to 27 laps, where I think the closest person to it was probably either Lewis or Fernando, and I think they pushed it for 24. So
yeah,
yeah, they broke the record as well for most races in a row won by a team. McLaren held that
yeah,
from 1988 with Senna and Prost, and they got 12 now. So I'm pretty sure they'll probably
yeah.
hold it for most of the season.
Yep.
um,
That's not a record that's being beaten.
yeah,
They'll probably win, but they'll win. I mean, they'll probably win all the races, the remainder of the races.
unless there's a
So
PU failure, but
yeah, true. But like they haven't looked like they're facing any reliability issues.
yeah,
So yeah, I don't think that's a record that's going to be touched for a very very long time.
yeah. I mean, maybe start of 2026 when like hopefully somebody makes a really good engine, but that's a hope.
Yeah,
Um, but also Sergio Perez finally gets into Q3. It took him 5 races to get there, but he got there and made a great recovery drive, if you want to call it that, from I think seventh to third today.
yep, yeah, yeah.
So good drive from him. Your thoughts on his overall performance this weekend?
Listen, it's still the fastest car on the grid. It's still the best car on the grid.
Hmm.
And this idea that that was a great drive. If that was Max Verstappen starting in P7, he would have still won the race.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So all credit to him. Great drive, good drive. Got his elbows out. He looked like the old Sergio Perez, but we said this in Austria again when he had a good comeback drive. Oh, he's got his mojo back, and he just tanked in the next two races.
Mhm.
So or the next race. So I will. I'm not gonna give him. I'm not gonna say he's back. I'm gonna say he is still very much on the ropes with the Red Bull team. I think
Yeah,
because he is still at risk of losing P2 in the drivers' championship. In my opinion, I think Lewis is now like it seems to me that Lewis is in like prime form of the season. He's ramping up for he's the second half of the season peaker. So
yeah,
he'll peak now, and I think that's something that Perez needs to look at. But I'll believe it when I see it. I need at least 3 or 4 races of consistent form to say that he's back.
yeah. Um, Obviously we saw Lando on the podium. He actually had a kind of tough race today, I'd say. Probably for like from laps like 56 to 66, he was terrified of Checo behind him. Checo cut down
Yeah,
that gap from what was like 6.6 down to like 1.3 seconds at one point,
yeah,
and got a little antsy on the radio with his race engineer.
yeah. He's a likable guy, but like Lando has these moments where he makes these comments,
Yeah,
and it's he comes off as super arrogant because
yeah,
like that radio with the blue flags, and like he said, oh, they're not racing for anything.
yeah,
I mean, you were there not too long ago,
yeah,
so I mean, I think there has to be like a greater, like a little bit more respect shown. Then, so I mean, yeah, obviously in the heat of the moment, it's fine, but
yeah.
great performance.
But also like literal heat of the moment because they were up to like 50 degrees Celsius on track today,
Exactly.
so
Yeah.
it's pretty freaking
Yeah.
hot. I can
Exactly.
see why people would get kind of ticked off.
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
but then on the other end of the spectrum, Oscar Piastri had a fantastic start. Like, could not have been any
Yeah.
better. Uh, but after his first stint, kind of just trailed off. What do you think happened there?
I don't know. I think it was primarily tires. I think I think most people did a two stopper this weekend,
Yeah,
and so um, the tires I think there was probably higher deg than they anticipated because a lot of the drivers were complaining about tire deg, and obviously the heat has a lot to do with that.
yeah,
And honestly, I don't know. Like honestly, I don't think he didn't drop off. I think it's just that faster cars and better drivers got the better of him.
yeah,
He lost out to Perez and Lewis, right?
yeah.
So
I can see him losing out to Checo. I mean, I was half expecting Checo to pass up Lando, but when he lost out to Lewis, I was a little surprised because during Oscar's first stint, he held on to like an 8 second gap to Max for a pretty good portion of the race, and then he was on the same tire strategy as Lando. I think they had what is in essence an equal tire strategy where they just went medium, hard, medium. But during his last stint, he was like, I want to say 6 or 7 tenths laps slower than the other people in the top five.
yeah, I mean, for me, like I was a bit surprised that he lost out to Lewis initially, but then as the fuel burnt off of Lewis's car, Lewis was like had there been like 5 more laps, I genuinely believe that Lewis would have been third on the
Oh,
podium.
100%.
He was annihilating Perez's gap to him, so
Yeah.
it was quite impressive to see. So I think listen, overall, he finished what fifth,
Yeah.
Piastri. So I think it's a great. I mean, it's a great showing.
Yes.
Second and fifth is a great showing from the McLaren guys. So I think they don't really have a lot to worry about. We'll see how they go in spots, and whether they go good there is going to be a question. But like we'll see.
Yeah. So McLaren are now basically at half the points that Ferrari has, and they've made up more than 2/3 of those points in the last two or three races. So, and kind of going to it though, Ferrari are struggling tremendously. I think what they get today, sixth and seventh and eighth. Um,
Yeah, he lost. Yeah, he probably lost. Leclerc lost position, right?
yeah,
To
he lost the
George.
position to George. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
Sainz maybe right because Sainz maybe not.
Yeah, Carlos lost his position to George, but no, Charles was still 5 seconds ahead of Carlos.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Um, but like they do so well in qualifying, and I don't think they did awesome during this one, but I mean, Carlos missed out on his first Q3 appearance of the entire season, so first off, remarkable consistency from him,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
especially given the car underneath him. But um, I
yeah,
mean, they just they it doesn't seem like they have enough. Like they don't have what it takes to just get to the front and stay there. Like they get to the front and then they make what they call an upgrade package, and then they just move backwards. And it feels like they just keep moving backwards right now.
yeah. That's the signature Ferrari move.
When
Get to the
Ferrari's worried
front
about
and
the
then move.
Italians.
Get to the front and then move backwards. I mean, it's a pattern. It's a pattern that is repeated with them
Mhm.
since they got there. Every year they have like a good car, a second place car competing for a championship for the couple for the first half of the season, and then it just disappears.
Mhm.
And I think over the last 2 years, it's been accentuated by the fact that reliability and bad strategy, and they just haven't had consistency. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think I'd imagine Fred Vasseur is under a little bit of pressure.
Yeah.
Um, and I think Charles Leclerc is
Getting
probably dying
tired
to get
of
out.
it.
And to be fair, though, I think to be fair to Ferrari, Charles Leclerc has been treated as a golden boy for a little too long.
Yes.
Um, so he just like I think yeah, I just think that they need to stop treating him like a golden boy and also stop acting like they're the best team on the. I think they think like they're the best team on the grid because of that iconicism and because of their history, but the history isn't helping them, and the iconicism is definitely lost because now I'd say Mercedes and Red Bull are now the top, like the most teams you associate with F1.
Mhm.
Um, so I think they have a lot to do to get their act together.
Yeah. And also, kind of like going back to the Charles thing, they don't have to make Charles their like they can't make him their definitive number one driver because he's not right now.
Exactly.
And it's frustrating because like Carlos is clearly showing on basically every race and every qualifying session that he can be where Charles is. Maybe not exactly every single race, but like I'd say they're a good 50-50 split on like who's better on race day.
Yeah, I think I firmly believe that. I will stand by my thing that Charles Leclerc is a future world champion or has the potential to be a future world champion,
Yeah.
but he lacks the consistency that you need to be one, and he lacks in some ways the motivation that for example Lewis, right, for the
Yeah.
last few years they've had a rough time. At least the team has had a rough time, and but still over 2 years consistent, helping the team build up to get to where they are now. You know, raking in the points that he needs to bring in, and I don't think Charles has that mentality yet. Maybe he won't ever have it, but I think between him and Sainz, I think it's time. I think Ferrari need to sort of like say, you know what, we're done prioritizing you two. Your only job now is to rake points in
Mm.
and help us develop this car. And because they're not competing for the championship, they're not even competing for second right now the championship. So I think right now they need to like stop this. Okay, we're gonna prioritize Sean Lewis's. Carlos is gonna just be second gunner.
Yep.
I think they just need to like be like go and get the points. We don't care who finishes where. Test out our development parts. Test out the upgrades. We need to get back to the top.
Yep. Yeah. They just a lot of help needed over there. Um,
Lots of help.
it's a really weird dynamic because you have a driver who's expecting to be treated like a number one and a team who wants to treat him like a number one, but they also have a second
Yeah,
driver who is arguably better right now.
exactly. Yeah,
So, kind of on the same thing, George overtaking Carlos, like the radio call he gave to his race engineer asking to switch tires, like 6 laps before the end of the race, and then goes on to overtake Carlos. What the heck is he on?
I definitely think that was a bluff for Ferrari. I think Ferrari had just gotten a little too comfortable in their position,
Yeah.
and suddenly George was right up to behind of Carlos,
Mm.
and when he came around that final corner, went a little bit wide, like intentionally took the wide line, and
Yeah.
then slingshotted himself. That was some overtake on him.
Yes.
I mean, obviously the basic it was a basic overtake, and to go and take the inside line and then dive and then take the corner.
Yeah.
but the build up to it was quite a special thing. So I think it was a bluff that they were trying to play on Ferrari, and Ferrari, in their infinite wisdom, fell for it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, his entire third sector up to the overtake, he looked like he was trying to overtake it literally every corner. And then
exactly.
yeah, and then Carlos had a little slip up at the very end of the 14th corner and George just like almost hit him actually.
Yeah.
So, great overtake on his part and then obviously closed down the gap to Charles to take 6th. So, I mean,
Yep.
it feels like right now Ferrari is their challenge is going to be holding on to third place rather than fighting for fourth. Or their challenge is going to be holding on to fourth place rather than for, fighting for third because McLaren's
Oh
catching
yeah,
up
hundred
faster
percent.
than they're catching Mercedes or Aston Martin.
Yeah,
But
100%.
on that topic,
Oh, yeah,
Aston Martin. That is a team that needs help. This is a track that everybody thought they were going to be fantastic on because during Bahrain they were great in medium speed and slow speed corners. Actually, every track where there's a lot of medium and slow speed corners, they've been awesome. And so it's like Hungary, that's just Hungary, and they
yeah,
got ninth and 10th. So like,
yeah.
what's going on there? Is it like a case of they're just getting outdeveloped, or the drivers losing motivation to like keep going, or like what's going on?
I think I don't know if they're getting outdeveloped. I mean, possibly. I mean, obviously they've been outdeveloped by McLaren. That is very consistent.
Yeah,
They have maybe been outdeveloped by Mercedes, but for the most part, Mercedes, since the big side pod upgrade, they've only brought a new front wing.
yeah,
And I think they have one more plan for Spa, and that's pretty much the end of it. In terms of big upgrades, I think there's going to be smaller ones, but the big ones will be at Spa. And so I think they've definitely been outdeveloped, but I just think that I don't know. I think they've tried something that is mixing a bunch of cars, right? They've tried to mix the Mercedes suspension with the Red Bull side pods, and like it's a big aspect of all the different cars. And I think throughout that they've sort of lost. I think they don't think their upgrades are working clearly because they're not. They've had a severe drop in performance, and we all know how Fernando Alonso can be when he suddenly realizes that he has a bad car, he gets toxic and
yeah,
pissy and whiny. And so I think it's just a case of being outdeveloped plus just not understanding the car to the fullest extent.
yeah. I mean, I don't think Fernando's in that like mindset yet of getting like like you said, pissy about it. But it was weird because he gave the radio call like that he heard that the Ferraris were struggling with their tires. He's like, okay, let's put some pressure on them, and then proceeds to fall back even further. So it's like,
Yeah,
what was that?
no, yeah, I think they got a little bit too ahead of themselves
Yeah,
when they started getting podiums. I think they had this thing that, oh yeah, we're definitely beating Mercedes.
yeah,
We're competing with Mercedes and Ferrari. We're better than both of them. And I think Mercedes have shown that they're obviously better, and Ferrari haven't shown, but on pace they're better. So we'll see.
yeah. Moving backwards, Alex Albon, held off Valtteri for I want to say 16 laps nonstop in DRS.
Yeah,
So, it's nothing. I don't think it's surprising at this point for anybody to see Alex Albon like holding up people like that anymore. Just because like nobody overtakes a Williams on a straight line anymore at
yeah,
all. Actually, not even a Red Bull could. It's insane. Um,
yep,
I don't know if you were watching the tech talks at all before the race started, but they showed how every team's development has gone. Red Bull this race have gone up about 2.5 tenths over the entire season, according to the data. Mercedes have gone up about 1.8 tenths. Ferrari have gone up zero point zero 0.07. Uh, McLaren have gone up 0.73, like 7.5 tenths of a second over the season.
yeah,
Aston Martin have gone up 1/10, and then Williams sitting in sixth have gone up almost 5 tenths. So the two largest gainers out of the whole field are obviously McLaren and Williams, and you can actually see that.
yeah,
But the fact of the
yeah,
matter is that it feels like the teams underneath Williams at this point, which are AlphaTauri, Alfa Romeo, and Haas, just aren't doing anything.
yeah.
But one thing I think we could be shocked about for Alfa Romeo is both their cars in Q3.
Oh yeah,
That was
I
awesome.
think the new it was definitely accentuated by the new alternate tire, the
Yeah.
ATA rule. I don't necessarily. Obviously, the rule made a good qualifying session, but the practices I didn't watch too many practices, but I heard they were um, not fun for fans because cars were not going out on track, and it was just like a couple laps and come back in.
Yeah, so
Um,
FP1 was basically thrown away. Like nobody went out after the rain started coming down. Like there was two red flags, and then after that, like nobody went out anymore because it's just like race day. We know there's gonna be no rain, and it's gonna be toasty as hell, so we're not going out there. It'd be a waste of data. Um, and then FP2 was right after the F2 qualifying, and so like the track was kind of rubbered in, but it was still a little bit wet. And like teams went out, but it was really just like testing out each of the tires. Since with the ATA, they also brought slightly different constructions for the tires, which were tested in Silverstone and Spain, was it? Um,
yeah,
so they brought those new tires as well, and I think the tires held up pretty well. I think it's nice just because the tires were burning out kind of fast, and so strategy did play a pretty nice role here. Um,
yep.
but I mean, what are your thoughts on the new tire allocation that they had for this race?
Uh, Look, it can't be argued that it made qualifying more exciting.
Hmm.
Um, I think you could have easily, instead of getting rid of one or two softs or one or two hards, you could have easily just said, we're going to throw out a bunch of wets and we'll give you a couple more. We'll increase the dry tire allocation because realistically, you don't need that many wets,
Yeah.
that many wet tires. So,
Well, I think they have
uh,
two sets of super wets and then four sets of intermediates, which I mean the intermediates do go out kind of fast, so understandable having those.
yeah, but like, there's no need, like, no. Anytime you need a like everybody knows, and anytime you need a super wet tire, that race isn't happening, and the
Yeah.
FIA is not going to let it happen. So what's the point, right?
Yeah.
Give them one. Give it'll be like a couple laps under the safety car, and then okay.
Okay, Belgium 2021.
So exactly. So give him like one set of super wets, and on certain weekends that you expect, or on a dry weekend that you expect to be dry, like so. Races like Budapest, where you expect it to be dry. Monza, you expect it to be dry. Give them one set of super wets, two sets of intermediates, and give them more dry tires so
Hmm.
that you're able to sort of get more running on track during practice. Um, more, not even from like a practice perspective, but more for the fans as a whole. Like people are watching online, people are watching in the stands.
Yep.
Like obviously, you want them to be able to experience the full thing, and it's not really fun. Like it's not fun if you know they're doing like some drivers won't go out at all. Some drivers will do like 3 laps and then pop back in and say, "All right, I'm done for the session."
Yeah.
So, I think there's a different solution to be had that's slightly better than this one.
Mm. I mean, I can understand that, yeah. I wouldn't say give them more dry sets of tires just because they do have like before this they had 13 sets and 8 of those were soft tires. Quite frankly,
Yeah,
nobody used the soft tires outside of qualifying unless it's a really really good reason. Like maybe Mexico when soft tires last for half the race, but if the tires only last for 12 laps, nobody's using them. Um,
yeah,
so I do like the way that they did it. Four sets of soft tires, and I mean the teams that didn't like knew they weren't making it to Q3 used all their soft tires before qualifying. Um, and then they just saved a set of hards and mediums. And I think it's kind of nice because all tires that are used in qualifying, unless they're punctured, you get to keep for the race. And so when you use
yeah,
those brand new hards and mediums for qualifying, at least you still have those for the race and they're already rubbered in. So I kind of like it. Maybe instead of three sets of hards though, because quite frankly, that's too many. I think two is a good number to give people. Maybe give them three
yeah.
sets of hards and then just give them another set of softs. Like five sets of softs, four sets of mediums, and then two sets of hards because nobody needs two sets. Like nobody needs more than two sets. Use one for the like practice, and then you can use one for qualifying in the race.
Yep, I
Um,
agree.
but the other thing is Daniel Ricciardo's comeback. He got P13. I think he started P13 as well. So, I mean,
He,
what were you
he beat
expecting?
Yuki.
He did do that. What were you expecting from him today, though?
Today, I think at one point I saw him dead lost,
Yes.
and I thought, all right, well, there's Daniel. I was like, dead. He's dead lost. I mean, that's pretty much how I thought it would go.
Yeah.
Um, for the first race back, I thought, it would be difficult for him.
Hmm.
But definitely exceeded expectations. Beat Yuki. Maybe through whether it was through strategy or pace, definitely, and despite give him credit, despite the accident in the first corner on the first lap, I think he got whacked by Zhou and then
Yes.
proceeded to take out two of the Alpines.
Yeah.
Credit where it's due. He did the job.
Mm.
Now let's just see if he can maybe score some points. Uh, P10 maybe a couple times. Get
Anything to help
some.
that team. Anything.
Yeah, basically, and honestly, just beat Yuki. Even if you're not scoring points, if your ultimate goal is a Red Bull seat, beat Yuki.
Yes.
Because Red Bull will find an excuse to fire Perez and hire you, so just beat Yuki.
Yes. They just want to, like, I think at this point, like, yeah, Checo might get second place, but I think they're just looking for a reason to use Daniel on that team. And if you
Yeah,
can't beat Yuki, I don't think they'll have a reason to use him.
exactly.
Um, Haas qualified 19th, and I think Hulkenberg was ninth for the race, and then didn't get any points. I think they fell
Yeah, I mean,
14 and 17th.
yeah.
Did we maybe overestimate what they were going to be capable of this year when they said that they were going to be operating at the budget cap?
I think so. I think we might have. I don't know if we overestimated. I think when people say they're operating in the budget cap, you expect them to sort of uh, make steps forward, and maybe it's not. Maybe they're not just not. They've decided that this is not the car that they're going to focus on. They're going to focus on next year's car. I don't know. I
Yeah.
haven't really paid attention to what Gunter Steiner has been saying,
He hasn't been
but
saying much.
exactly. So I think for sure. I think the focus might have been on next year's car. I think they've sort of realized that okay, this car is probably peaked at where it's at in terms of its performance and how it does on race pace. And I think developing a car so that it doesn't eat its back tires the way the Haas does and overcook them, I think that takes a significant chunk of budget. And so that maybe they've just decided that we're going to deal with this car and next season we'll have a better car. So I don't know if
Yeah.
we overestimated, but I think it's just maybe we got a little too excited about the fact that
Yeah.
they were doing good over time.
I mean, yeah, understandable, and I do understand that, but they're sitting at 11 points right now. I think Hulkenberg has scored 7. Hulkenberg scored 9, K-Mag scored 2. Um, quite frankly, I don't think Gunter Steiner is going to be very happy with a team that scores less points than it did last year, which was 27. So,
Yeah,
but the thing is, with the way that they're going right now, you got to get the feeling that it doesn't look like they're going to score points anytime soon, right?
they are not scoring points anytime soon. I think it'll take like Spa 2021 type situation for them if they can get like a really good qualifying in, then
Yeah.
the race is a complete washout, or like a big accident, like where a couple of maybe
Yeah.
3 to 4 drivers and take something like that. So I think maybe if they have an upgrade plan, maybe it'll help. But if they don't, I think it's going to be a sort of a pointless sort of season for them.
Yeah.
But I think also they have to sort of. I think Gunter Steiner needs to revisit his technical department because whatever they're doing is not working.
Yeah.
So I think he needs to sort of. I think they've had the same guys for a long time now. So I think it might be time to sort of take a little bit of an investigation into what's going on.
Yeah. I mean, now that you're operating technically at the budget cap, it might be time to not only look at the car, but also the team you have under you. You have the money to change what's there now. So it wouldn't be a bad
Exactly.
idea to just like, maybe it's time for a new head of arrow or something. Um, the one team that's kind of hard to talk about because everything that happened to them today is totally out of their hands was Alpine. I mean, Joe trying to make
Yeah.
up by outbraking himself in the corner, slamming into the back of Daniel, who inadvertently slammed in the back of Ocon. who then took out the right tire or rear left tire of Pierre Gasly, and they're both out of the race because of it. Is a 5 second penalty like worth? I mean, is it worth it to just give somebody a 5 second penalty for taking out two people?
I don't know. I think it maybe if it looks intentional or it's sort of it's a series of events that you can definitely say was not a racing incident. There was more that could have been done
Yeah,
to prevent that accident. Then yes, that's a 5 second or 10 second penalty. I think first lap, start of the race, first lap, first corner, it's just difficult to gauge how who to appropriate blame to. You can obviously in this case, Joe was the one who was probably to blame in that sense because he
yeah,
outbroke himself, hit Daniel. Daniel then took out one Alpine, and the other Alpine took out the other Alpine. So um, tough, but
yeah. Um, it feels like Alpine are kind of where they are. I think they're gonna have to settle for sixth place this season. They're not catching McLaren. Quite frankly, I think McLaren is. I think there's something to be said about McLaren right now. Obviously they're doing well, but I think compared to the teams around them, I think McLaren is one of the most forward-facing teams.
yeah,
Like Ferrari, I feel like has been looking behind their backs since like the halfway mark of last season. Mercedes, you can say they're looking forward, but it still feels like they're looking kind of behind them. Um, Aston Martin is clearly looking behind them because they haven't made any steps forward. But McLaren are just charging straight ahead with this. Um, and so I'm kind of curious. Like they're planning on bringing another upgrade package to Belgium. It was supposed to come this weekend, but something along the lines of transportation issues, they couldn't get the parts in fast enough, so they'll have all of them for next week. And so I mean, it kind of gets you excited, doesn't it?
McLaren have an upgrade coming
Yeah,
next race.
yeah,
Oh, for the love of Christ! Uh, yeah, 100%. I think obviously whatever they're doing is working. So if the upgrade works and it sort of makes them consistent against on all the remaining tracks, you know, Ferrari is definitely up for grabs
yep,
in terms of their championship position. Aston and Mercedes, I think maybe not because despite the McLarens being faster, Lewis, George, Aston maybe if their decline keeps going,
yeah,
but Mercedes, Lewis and George are showing Lewis especially is showing consistency. He's in the top five pretty much every
yep,
race. So Mercedes might be a little bit out of reach, but Aston and Ferrari are definitely I think up for grabs in terms of
yeah.
they could potentially maybe leapfrog Ferrari in the constructors.
I can definitely see that. Because I mean they've scored. I want to say 6 or 7 times as many points as both Aston and Ferrari over the past three races. And I mean, leapfrogging them's not going to take too much more. Like maybe another four races
Yeah.
like this. Um, I think Mercedes are going to have second place wrapped up just because the gap between them and McLaren is like 140 points. Uh, yeah, Lando and Oscar can keep getting 2 and 5, but as long as Lewis is up there in third or even second sometimes, and George just gets seventh or sixth, then I don't think McLaren are catching them. Um, I also didn't know about the Mercedes upgrade that's coming next week.
I
Um,
think there's an upgrade coming next
yeah,
week. I could be wrong. I thought I read somewhere that there's a bigger upgrade coming next week. So
yeah.
we'll see.
I think there's as far as I know, there's four teams bringing upgrades next week that are supposed to be major updates. Well, okay, McLaren's is going to be a major one, but it is an update nonetheless. So McLaren's bringing one. Williams is bringing one. Red Bull is bringing a different rear wing specifically for Spa, and then Aston Martin is bringing a new front wing. As far as I'm aware, Aston Martin is up in the air. None of the other teams, as far as I know, are bringing one. But I'm most excited for Williams, obviously, just because obviously I'm a fan of them, but also like Belgium is a track where theoretically they should score points on. And I'm really
Yeah.
hoping that Logan Sargent can get a point there. It's a long
I mean,
shot, but he's showing pace now. Like I feel like now that he actually has the upgrade package, Silverstone, I think he got P11, and then today I want to say he got 13th or 14th, which not
yeah.
great, but where did he finish out actually? Wait, Logan didn't finish today's race.
No, yeah, he DNF'd right on the last lap because
I
of
did
this.
not know that.
He looped it around, and I think they were like, "All right, that's enough for you. Okay, DNF."
He was doing
I think
pretty
he might have.
well.
Yeah, he was doing well. I don't know if maybe there was some issue, but he definitely. I saw him loop. I think he took too much of the corner and then looped it around.
Yeah,
And maybe there was a subsequent issue, but I didn't. I think they just sort of said, "Okay, you know, it's over, so just come back in."
yeah. But I do want him to score. I mean, just because both he's an American and also I like Williams, but also he's a rookie, and I would enjoy watching him get at least like a P10. Like if he gets one
Yeah,
point this year, I'm gonna be exuberant.
yeah. I mean, Spa is probably the best place for it, just
Either
because
that or Monza.
it's yeah, or Monza. Spa and Monza are probably the best place for it because that car is super
Cheap.
friggin' rocket ship in a straight line. So I think if he can have like a good qualifying session, like just put together like at one of those two tracks, just put together a good qualifying session. Sort of like maybe like watch how Alex goes about it and put together a really good qualifying session. And he could definitely score some points if
Yeah,
he can like get into Q3. Then points are definitely on.
yeah. Um, I think this is one of those weird situations though. Williams is always the first team out of the pit lane during qualifying for every single session. Both because they're sitting at the end of the pit lane and also they just get their cars out there like 4 or 5 minutes before anybody else and just have them sit there. So
Yeah,
I mean, it's nice, and I also think they switch off who's in front every single time. I think Alex has been
yeah,
taking
that's most teams.
yeah, I think Alex has been sitting in the front more, just that way Logan can learn from him while he's driving behind
Yeah,
him. But there is a tiny rumor, and I don't think it's much of a rumor as much as the fact that Logan's not exactly happy with the portrayal of the team right now. Like the team right now is Alex Albon, and when it comes to media duties, usually Alex Albon's the only one being shown. They had a live Q&A that was like an hour long, and it was only Alex on there. When they
yeah.
talk about the team, it's like Alex and like, I mean, it's understandable being frustrated by that, but also like if you want to make yourself known within the team, you kind of gotta score a point.
Yeah, I mean, I think every team has that type of an issue. So it's not just specific to Logan. Like, I'm sure, Daniel was when Daniel and Max were together. When Max was, beating him, it was Max, Max, Max.
Yeah,
When Lewis and Valtteri were teammates, it was Lewis, Lewis, Lewis. And
yeah.
even now, Lewis is beating George, it's Lewis, Lewis, Lewis.
Even when
So
George was beating Lewis, it was Lewis Lewis
it's
Lewis.
still Lewis. That tells you how like iconic like all these drivers are.
Yeah,
Lando and Piastri. Lando is the more iconic one.
yeah,
It tells you how these because they're performing, they're consistent, um, they have the personality that can sort of that you can project out there, and people like that personality. I haven't heard Logan Sargent say anything.
I don't think
Honestly,
they
I've
show his
maybe
voice. I don't think they show his radio calls at all.
I've exactly I've maybe heard him speak once in a press conference, and so I think if he grows into that, the only American driver, bring more of a personality. He's sort of like Lance Stroll. It's
Yeah,
like very dead. And that's fine, but you have the unique opportunity of being the only American driver on the grid right now. And that's something you could definitely play into to get if you're really that desperate about wanting attention and
yeah,
wanting to be seen as equal to Alex, which you're not if you don't perform. But on personality gauge, if you want to be seen as equal to Alex, then there's an opportunity there for him to take. Whether he does it or not is a different issue.
yeah. I think he's probably in one of the more fortunate opportunities on the grid, given that he's probably not losing his seat anytime soon. Um,
Yeah,
Even if he scores 0 points, I'm pretty sure nobody wants to get rid of him. Like James Fallis is outwardly spoken. He's like, he wasn't my first choice, but I am okay with keeping him even if he doesn't score points. And like when you have that kind of security, you literally don't need to worry about anything else besides just learning. Like if you
yeah,
know for a fact you're getting a second year in that seat, just literally look at the guy next to you who's putting in some absurd performances. and just learn from him. It doesn't like it's
True.
okay to show some humility and just ask him like, "Hey, how are you doing this?"
True, yeah. But I think also the flip side of that is every team principal is gonna tell the media that no, yeah, our second driver has our full support. He's definitely gonna be there next season.
I think
I mean, Christian.
Mercedes and Red Bull are very blatant about who's not going to be there.
Yeah, Mercedes. I mean, right now Mercedes obviously George is contracted. I think they're going to talk about an extension at the end of the year because it was supposed to be done in the middle of the year, but they're pushing it to the end of the year because he's worried about being in Lewis's shadow for too long,
Mhm.
um, which is absurd to me because the best person you want to drive with is Lewis Hamilton. Why would you want to drive with anyone else?
Yeah.
Um, no, like not even as a bias, but like just like Lewis was willing to teach. He's willing to share.
Yeah.
Whereas if you went to go, if George went and drove alongside Mac, they would be crashing into each other quite a bit.
No, I think George would
So
probably pull a Charles and lose all motivation to drive the car because, quite frankly,
possibly,
I don't
but
think
if he
George
can
would be able to
drive,
keep up with them.
yeah, but like every so often when he did, they'd be crashing into each other
Oh,
because George
100%.
is a elbows out. So yeah, I think Logan Sargent, and if he does keep the seat for the second season, I think there has to be a definitive step up in
Yeah.
performance to justify to James Vowles to keep him beyond 2 years.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole host of drivers that could take that seat. Frederick Vesti, um,
Speaking of which,
someone
they had
else
their
from
race
F.
today too. I wonder how that went.
So we'll see.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a very opportune place to be. As far as the F2 championship, it actually closed up some more. Vesti is still sitting at the top by 11 points over Teo Porcher, who's 10 points ahead of Ayuma Iwasa. And that whole series is up for grabs. Quite frankly, watching those races is one of the most exciting things. And also
Yeah,
not. The cars are much closer together, and nobody really gets lapped in those races unless they're god awful. Like, if you have a
yeah,
Maivia Ragunathan or Alessio Deleta, then you get people who get lapped. But outside of that, like, I feel like this year's F2 grid is pretty competitive with each other. And you also have three superstars coming out. I won't say they're like Charles Leclerc or George Russell or Lando Norris type or even Alex Albon type talents yet, but they're all really good drivers.
yeah,
um, I mean, next week we have Spa, and there are cars on the grid right now that, like, obviously Red Bull is going to be good there because they have the straight line speed, they have the quartering speed, their upgrade package clearly works. Uh,
yep,
Last year we saw Alex Albon score 2 points in the Williams, and I think he held a train of like four cars behind him for most of the race.
yeah.
And he's getting these comparisons to, I don't know if you know who this is, but Jarno Trulli.
I know who he is.
Okay.
Yeah, I know who he is.
He
Yeah.
developed this reputation for this thing called the Trulli train because
Oh,
he had this amazing qualifying pace where he would qualify like third or fourth on the grid, and he would lose out on a couple spots to the people who were actually better. But then he
yeah,
got this like it wasn't a DRS train, it was a train of cars behind him. He was just fast enough where they couldn't get past him, but just slow enough where it would make everybody behind him frustrated.
yeah.
That's Alex Albon right
I can
now.
imagine. Yep.
We saw it in Canada. We get to see it. We got to see it today with Valtteri, and I feel like we're gonna see it again in Belgium. So
Yeah,
that'll be super
probably.
exciting. Um,
He has a good qualifying. It's going to be a train.
yeah. And then the only other team that I'm thinking is gonna be fast, just because they have been already, is McLaren. They're still lacking in the straight line speed department, but it has been shown that they are faster than Mercedes in a straight line.
Yeah,
Outside of that, though, their second sector and third sector should be like probably purple sectors are pretty close to it because it's a lot of high speed and medium speed corners for them. And we all know
yeah,
how nice it is to watch people take I want to say it's turn 8 flat out.
yeah.
Lewis has the cleanest videos of it. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but if you just look it
No,
up, oh,
I've seen him. I've seen in that W11
yes.
in the W11 flat out through most. Oh my God, it's that car. I think about that car every day.
Yes.
That car was perfect,
Yeah.
just perfect.
I was actually like curious as to why, like, what made the W11 so special. Besides the fact that it was the first black Mercedes that they had in their since their conception as a team. Uh, Looking at the times between the W 10 and the W12, and then the W11, there was something to be said about that car. And the fact that Mercedes actually somehow managed to take a back step with the W12 kind of scares me.
No, but the W12 was a 2021 car,
Yeah.
right? The W12 there was also in 2021 there were the FIA had put in technical had inserted technical regulations at the beginning of the season with regards to the floor, I think,
Hmm.
which were considered directed at Mercedes
Yeah.
to slow them down a little bit.
Mm.
So that's what slowed him down. It was directed at low rake cars, the tech so like that, and then Aston because they were the pink Mercedes at the time
Yeah.
or the green Mercedes, they were also affected, um, which is ironic when you consider that the FIA president recently said that we can't introduce technical regulations to slow people down. So
Yeah.
the hypocrisy is not lost on Mercedes fans. I'll tell you that much.
That's awesome. Um, if you haven't looked at them, I literally have. There's no reason for me to say this, but like Formula Addict, if you look at any of their videos, they have some of the coolest
Yeah, I've
stuff.
seen it.
They like show you
Yeah, I've
all
seen
their times, the racing lines that they follow. One of the coolest things. Um, but that's all we have for you guys today. And Jakob's gonna take us out. But if you stayed to the end, let me know what your thoughts were on the race or what you think's gonna happen in Belgium next week. And yeah.
it. It's lights out and away we go.